Welcome to McCullough Hall Historical Museum. My name is Karina Filipowski. I'm the Curator of Education and Community Engagement here at the museum. Today we're going to take a look at two pieces in our collection that have reverse glass painting. This will be the inspiration for our art project. Let's head to the family office to see the first one. We're now in the McCullough family office. Behind me is one of two banjo clocks in our collection. Both banjo clocks are attributed to the Willard family, which was a prominent clockmaker in Massachusetts at the beginning of the 19th century. This particular one, the reverse painting at the bottom, is a scene from Harry's victory in the Battle of Lake Erie during the War of 1812. The second banjo clock is up in the Miller bedroom. This one behind me has the USS Constitution in the bottom panel, again, that reverse glass painting.
To get started with our reverse glass painting, I have drawn out a sketch of the museum on my piece of paper and placed my plexiglass piece over it. I secured both of the top with just a small piece of tape and I'm starting to get my paints ready. I have decided to use red, green, blue, and white, and we'll mix those as we go throughout. Now this technique of painting does start with the foreground first, because you are meant to view it from the opposite side. So we need to work our way up from the painting instead of if you were just painting on a piece of paper, the traditional way would be to start with the background first and then work your way forward. We'll be doing that opposite today. Don't worry if you make mistakes throughout. This is just a for fun and learning experience for all of us, and I'll show you the step-by-step as we go how I did this. So to start, I am starting with some bushes in front of the museum. The museum has a beautiful garden, and I wanted to capture that in this painting with these bushes. So these will be the first layer that people will see when we flip over our glass to start. I'm using my green paint and my thicker brush because I wanted the bushes to be a little larger. I'm mixing in some white paint to give it some dimension and just some differences there. The next part of the painting that I'm going to work on is the glass. So what I'm doing here is I am just mixing up some of that blue with a lot of white. So I get a very, very, very pale blue so it looks clear like glass when I put it on the painting or when I put it on the plexiglass. And I will go ahead and start working left to right. The part that I'm working on the house is the oldest part of the house. This part was built in 1810 by George and Louisa McCullough. They moved here from London with their young family. They have a daughter named Mary Louisa and a son named Francis. As their family grew and as their prominence grew, they kept extending on and adding two more additions to the house. So the middle part of the house was added in 1813, and the farthest right part of the house was added as a schoolroom for boys in 1819. So as I add this blue paint to the plexiglass here, I'm doing my best to keep it in nice rectangles, but I'm not perfect. So that's okay if you're not either. As you find yourself working on this, you can design whatever you want to paint. I decided to work on the house because it had these incredible lines and a great story to share as we go throughout. The windows themselves do have many individual panes on them, but due to the size that I was working with, I ultimately decided to just keep it simple and just do one sheen of plain glass. If you would want to in your own painting and you have a Sharpie nearby or a similar permanent marker, you could go in with lines and add those lines, those panes, and add some more detail work. I was just going to work with paint today, but however you want to adjust that, or make it your own, you're more than welcome to. The door I'm working on here has a little semicircle window above it, so I wanted to make sure I captured that little semicircle. The next portion of the house that I'm going to work on is the slate roof. So I'm going to take some of my red and my green and I'm going to mix them together to try and make a kind of muddy brown gray color that matches the roof on the museum. So I'm speeding this up a little bit and then I'm going to add that color once I got it kind of how I liked it to that roof. Now again, the color doesn't have to be perfect. I used more realistic colors as I went throughout, but you're welcome to add whatever colors you want to your particular painting. It is yours. Whatever you do will turn out incredible. I've just got one side of this roof done now, so I'm going to finish up a little detail work, making sure that there's no white showing from underneath, because that's crucial when I flip the painting over as I go throughout. So as I finish up this side and move to the other side, there's another half of the roof to do. I want to share a little bit about the family that lived here. So I mentioned George and Louisa built the home. They had one son and one daughter, Mary Louisa and Frances. Mary Louisa would marry Jacob Miller, and they would live in this house after Mary Louisa's parents passed. Jacob was the last Whig senator of New Jersey, and he and Mary Louisa had 9 children. At one point, all 9 children were living in this house. The next part of the house that I'm going to work on is the center portico area. I just want to take pure white with my very narrow paintbrush so that I can get some clean, crisp lines on my painting, and all I'm doing is tracing over those pencil marks that I made earlier on the piece of paper. And now the columns are fairly narrow, so I'm being careful to keep them as straight as possible, but knowing that if they're not, that's okay too. It'll be a very artistic interpretation of the house and museum. I love how simple this art technique is for beginners because all I'm doing is going over lines that I've already traced. I'm making them as simple or as complicated as I want to, and it's a little bit like coloring, almost paint by number, coloring in the lines, making it very fun to do. This art style makes it very easy for workshops or artists to duplicate other artists' work. Famously, in 1802, reversed glass paintings of George Washington came from workshops in China and were being sold for much cheaper than the paintings that Gilbert Stuart himself had done. I'm just going in and adding a bunch of white to this pediment here. Now, the line drawing that I had many more detailed lines, and I could have taken my time and used a dark color, either that dark brown that I had made, to really trace out some of those lines and add some dimension. But for my sake and simplicity's sake, I chose to make it all white and just go with the simpler version. I'm now mixing up a slightly dark gray for our doors. I want the doors to be a slightly different color than the pediment so they stand out. And then there are some borders around each of the doors that I'll make pure white a little bit later here. But for now, I just wanted to make sure that my doors were a little different color. One of the original doors, that front door that I was just working on, old images show that it was originally a Dutch door, a door that opens on the top and the bottom, a split door like that. Today we do not have a Dutch door anymore, but we have historic photos from the mid to early 1900s that show that Dutch door style. I'm just going in again with some of that bright white and adding the door frame around the doors, both there and then on the door that's on the right-hand side of the building that goes to our schoolroom gallery. The schoolroom gallery is the largest gallery in the museum today and houses 2 large paintings done by Thomas Nast. Thomas Nast was a political cartoonist in the mid to late 19th century, and he is the cartoonist who gives us the image of the Republican elephant, the Democratic donkey, the version of Uncle Sam we know, and the Santa that we all know and love today. These 2 paintings in this gallery are part of what he called the Grand Caricaturama, and they are 9 by 12 feet long and tell the story of the United States from the landing at Plymouth Rock through modern day for Nast, which was Reconstruction. The 2 paintings we have, one depicts the Battle of Appomattox Courthouse, and the other depicts the Union Convention of 1866 as the country figures out what to do after the Civil War. Now that I've gotten all the foreground done on the house, it's time to turn my attention to the bricks that make up the exterior of the museum. Now I'm going to actually swap out my paints and add a little bit of orange. I wanted the orange and the red to really give me that really good brick red color. So I'm mixing up a slightly darker red-orange to make some shadows and again to add some depth to my painting. Today the house is all red brick exterior, and you can see that there is what is remnants of white paint on the exterior. For most of its lifetime, the house was brick but covered in white paint. That's what it would have looked like when the McCulloughs lived here in the 1800s. However, when it was turned into a museum in the 1950s, our founder, W. Parsons Todd, chose to remove that paint and expose that red brick. And so that's what we have today. Now I'm just going in and adding some dark red splotches throughout the painting to give it some dimension. There is no rhyme or reason. I'm not following any sketch lines. I'm freehanding and using my own imagination and going by feel here. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out, so we will see the reveal together at the end of the video. This year marks 76 years. Our museum has been in operation as Morristown's Community Museum. Through those 76 years, we have continued to collect relating to the family, to Thomas Nast, and engaging with our community. I'm just adding some of that red brick to the fireplaces above our roof line here. Again, you can be as detailed or as simplistic as you'd like here. I knew I wanted to be a little more detailed here on the bricks, but as I'm so far away, it's such a far shot of the bricks, I was not able to do each individual brick. Lastly, there's just one more little chimney right in the center that I want to make sure I get. The house would have been heated by the fireplaces, and the fireplaces also would have been where the hearth cooking would have taken place. What we don't see in this image is that there is a downstairs basement. That's where the kitchen would have been. So now that I have that darker red accent done on the bricks, again, if you were doing this painting that wasn't a reverse glass painting, this would be work that you would add in last on top of those bricks. So now comes in what I find the most exciting and scary part. I'm going to paint over absolutely everything on this front facade with just some of that dark orange, slightly lighter than the color I was using before, but this is going to fill in any of those gaps and really complete the painting for me. As I paint in red across the side of the building here, it is definitely worth noting that it is crucial that you wait until that bottom layer is dry. Otherwise, all you're going to do is smear that paint and turn it into a nice muddy mix. So the paint on that first layer, or the layer closest to the glass, must be dry before you move on to the next. I'm just making sure I'm filling in all those little white spots. I don't want anything to show through when I flip over my painting. And so I'm going back and making sure that I'm getting all those. Again, doesn't matter what I'm painting over. What I'm painting over is going to show up first on that other side of the glass when I turn it over. Just going in and adding those details again to the brick chimneys above the roof line. So it looks like we just covered up all the hard work we just did, but this style of painting is definitely a trust the process style of painting. When we flip it over in just a few minutes, we'll see what I mean. All right, and now that the house is fully complete, I am going in with my light blue and I am adding a full background in. Now you can choose to leave your part of your painting without a background. I'm going to do a background so that the entire piece of plexiglass is covered in paint. So all I'm doing is going up above using my bigger brush, going back and forth. I've mixed some white with my blue for a really beautiful sky. Now you'll notice I'm staying away from the roof line. That is because I have not waited long enough for it to dry, so I'm giving it just another chance to dry before I completely brush that over. So I'm going to pause on the skyline right there for a minute and switch gears to mix up some green, make it a nice light green so it's different than the bushes, and add in a layer of grass. And this I find the most fun. It's big, long strokes across the glass. I'm going to mix in some light green and some dark green, and really just choose to put that horizon line wherever I want to. You could move yours up, you could move yours down, Maybe you're not doing a painting with a horizon line. Whatever you want is fine. So I'm going to go all the way down to the edge at the bottom and make sure I'm filling it on the sides. And now that I've done the green bit, I am going to go back through on the top and finish off the sky. The side of the building and the roof has dried enough for me to go through and do that. I'm still a little cautious that it's not dry, so I'm not fully going over, but if you have waited for your painting to be dry, then you can absolutely just paint over it without a care in the world there. You'll notice there is a streak of red where there was clearly a not dry part, and that's okay. We'll see what that looks like. So now it's finally complete. It's time for the moment of truth. Let's flip it over and see what it looks like.